Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Tri-F Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. Today is going to be kind of a weird week. We needed to do something because we've got so many new people from Mr. Buzz, and we wanted to tell all of you new subscribers, welcome, thank you. We're going to try not to disappoint. But we were very grateful for him coming on to the show and helping us out. That was very kind of him. So
yes, it was.
We felt like we needed to do a show tonight because we had so many people join. But honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know what we were going to say because of everything that's going on with the Charlie Kirk situation, and it's still pretty intense for people, especially given the reactions that we've seen throughout the last week. So normally, we talk about supernatural stuff, we talk about faith, we talk about fiction topics. We try to be somewhat glib and irreverent and relaxed, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate. So I figured we'd just kind of talk about the last week for this podcast, and then kind of talk about the nature of evil and kind of what we think about it over, after reflecting on everything that's happened. And, it's going to be a pretty short live stream tonight, maybe somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour. It's kind of got what I got in my head. If we run out of things to say, we got Jordan Peterson. He's got a video on what Karl Marx wrote about the devil, which I think is appropriate considering the situation. And I thought we would talk about it and reflect on it if we had to. But, or Trevor thought it was Trevor's idea, not mine, I should say. So,
Actually, I'm going to give it to the Lord. Because I was just looking on YouTube and there it was.
Yeah.
So.
But we just didn't think it would be good to kind of have the usual tone and tenor with the show that we always have. And thought we would just talk and reflect for a little bit and then move on.
Yeah.
So, kind of talk about the last week. Not that I think there's anybody out there who doesn't already know, but on the off chance that somebody doesn't know, we'll kind of review everything that's going on. And so, sorry, go on, Trevor.
There's a thunderstorm going on right now with me, so if I cut out, power went out.
We'll know what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess the best thing to do is kind of, recap. Charlie Kirk was killed. Well, howdy about intro. It's good to see you, man.
There he is.
Hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy.
So Charlie Kirk was killed. Like, I guess to be the last week. And we talked about that. I was pretty livid last week. Good news is at least one particular thing I wanted to see did happen.
What was it? Trump did what?
Declared Antifa a terrorist organization. That was one of my listed things I wanted to see done yesterday. And so I was very happy to see that. That was one of my big stickler points. So that's good. It's just, I guess we need to move on to the other part of it. I guess the reason that everybody's still kind of talking about it, or one of the reasons everybody's still talking about it and everybody's so disturbed is, everybody's reactions. Like, people being so happy that he died.
That's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, people were shocked, Trevor, but I gotta... Of everything that happened, that was the least surprising thing to me. Was it surprising to you?
No, I knew people were going to laugh about it and be hateful about it.
Yeah. It's like most of us kind of knew people were like that. People had got to that point. They've been at that frame of mind since Summer of Love back in 2020.
Yeah. Before that.
Yeah.
Well, and anybody who followed Charlie Kirk and listened to Charlie Kirk and knew he had people that hated him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were some people that got in front of the mic and was just hateful to him. Didn't even ask a question. They were just hateful.
Yeah.
Start.
Well, I mean, I've debated people like that in the past, and there's some people that you can debate and you have a great time talking to them, and you figure out their point of view, and it's very interesting, to see how they kind of come to their conclusions and how they perceive the world. But there's we'll see you in a minute, man. Have fun. Said he's got a phone call. He'll be right back. So, I mean, I've had good debates with people before, but man, there's a certain group you can't talk to them.
There's no debating them.
Yeah, you can't talk to them. They don't want to talk. They think you're scum. Their whole worldview is predicated on the fact that you're scum. And this is about, again, this kind of goes into the nature of evil thing. The only reason I can think that things are like that is because that entire ideology is mostly about what you're against more than what you're for. A
lot of them, they bring all these issues and problems to the table and no solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the only thing that I could think that could mostly be described as an affirmative stance would be like abortion. They think a woman ought to have the right to kill a kid because she has the right to choose, is kind of the thinking. But even that's kind of rooted in fear and rejecting the idea of life being, rejecting the value of human life, which is obviously how you would get to a place where you're willing to celebrate somebody's death when all they do is talk.
Right.
But aside from that, that's the only thing I can think of where it's like they're for something. The rest of the time it's, I hate capitalism. Well, what are you going to do to replace it? Socialism. Do you even know what that is? No. You know how many flavors?
I like the idea of getting free stuff.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting free stuff, I guess. I don't even think it's that. It's, I hate capitalism. Like I've been trying to think, and of course I've been talking in circles. I'm going to suck at this, but I have been trying to think of a way to describe this. Sound good and looks good. All right. Thank you very much, my fun time. Appreciate it. So, I suck at this, but I'm going to try to articulate what I mean, because I do have a specific meaning in my head. And, so let me see. Basically, when you and I are talking about, like, anything, like any political position we have, like like take something that they say we're against, like we're gay marriage, or like we're against gay marriage or whatever. We are against gay marriage because we are really for monogamy. It's not so much that we hate the other thing, but we really believe in the sacred value of, the institution of marriage. Like, we're for marriage. Does that make sense? We're not so much against them, we're for a particular concept. And I feel like with them, a lot of it is just, they're not so much for the gay marriage thing. It's, I'm against marriage. I'm against tradition. I'm against the things that were before.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing is just kind of being, I'm sure I'm sucking this up, but the whole thing is just them kind of being more motivated by their hostility towards their dad or somebody they know or whoever than it is actually being for the idea that they're proclaiming. Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of that might explain how you get to a place where you're willing to celebrate somebody's death. Because I'm like, if that had happened to somebody on the left, I'm not going to, like say AOC had something like that happen to her, I'm not going to cheer about that. I'm not going to be happy about it. I don't hate her. I disagree with her, and I believe in these particular ideals, but there's nothing about her that I hate. So the idea of, I know I'm talking crap, and I'm just spitballing ideas here, but the idea of just cheering for somebody like that, like I just don't get it, and I've been trying to get it all week. I've been trying to understand it, and the only thing I can think of is if you're primarily motivated by what you're against more so than what you're for, maybe that's what gets people to that place. Am I making sense, or am I just talking crap? Because I'm literally hypothesizing. I don't even know if I
you're,
believe what I'm saying.
you're making sense. From my understanding, and this is just me throwing it out there. I don't know if this is true for everybody, but a lot of people they get hurt in some way when they're young,
Mm-hmm.
and they wear that for the rest of their life, and they never. It's really hard for a lot of people to forgive
Mm-hmm.
and move forward. It's very difficult, and I've had that trouble myself. And
Yeah.
so you get stuck just mad at the what hurt you or who hurt you. And if there's another person that's similar to the person that hurt you, you're automatically hateful towards that person.
Yeah. It's like Charlie Kirk's some kind of avatar for their fathers or something.
Or,
Or whoever hurt him. Yeah.
Avatar for Trump. And Trump did terrible things.
Yeah.
And so they just, if you, we as human beings, because I've done it too, if something comes up and it makes me have to think about what happened that was bad for me in my past, and I haven't forgiven that part, I'm automatically going to dislike or even hate that part of the person that I'm talking to
Mm-hmm.
without even knowing them.
Yeah.
And that's one thing is a lot of people aren't. Yeah, it's called projection.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people project what they know.
Yeah. It's been a hard lesson for me to realize. My fun time says, isn't that called transference or projection? Yeah, I think it's transference is what you're referring to. Yeah. The idea, transference is a psychological concept where somebody looks like your dad or reminds you of a figure that is in your life. You start treating that person like that figure. So like your dad. If somebody reminds you of your dad, you'll start treating them like your dad. It's transference. Projection is taking what you're doing and projecting that behavior onto somebody else, assuming somebody else's motives or actions based on what you're doing. So transference is conflating your social role, if you will, from a loved one or somebody else in your life. So somebody reminds you of your dad, you treat them like their dad. Projection is taking your own motives, dumping them onto somebody else. Yeah. So anyway,
Thank you for that. My fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a jest, by the way. Demi made a YouTube channel called My Fun Time.
Oh. Okay.
So, yeah, it's not somebody new. It's Jess. But anyway, appreciate it all the same. Though I've been scared to death of lag, so I asked her to watch and check for lag.
I haven't noticed anything, but
that's good.
It is storming where I'm at. So.
Yeah. I just, it's such a weird thing to carry that hatred. Because, when I first got into politics, of course, I've been in politics since the bombing of the USS Cole. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh back. I remember down to the month. It was, I think, January 2000 is when I really started paying attention. Now, I'd seen other news stories in the past, but like following it super strictly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's January 2000. So about 25 years I've been...
That's a long time.
Yeah, looking at all this. And, I always enjoyed the debate, and I always had fun debating liberals. I remember in high school there was a girl that I argued with all the time, and I had such a blast. I think we both had a blast. At that time, it was okay to debate and disagree and have different opinions, and somebody be pro-choice and somebody be pro-life, and you just go back and forth that way. That was like weirdly a way of bonding. There were just some people that enjoyed the debate and and of course, me being kind of into acting as well, I enjoyed hearing other people's points of view and how they perceive the world. And so I always, I believed what I believed to be true, but I was always kind of energized by the debate, and I always enjoyed the challenge. And at some point in the last decade, it just stopped being that way. You know, it got really vitriolic, and now I just don't even understand it. You know? I don't even understand why these people, because I don't hate them. They have horribly repugnant opinions, in my belief, but I don't hate them. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. Well, I just don't understand why that isn't mutual. Like, how do you even get there?
They get taught certain things, and then, like I said, they start to transference or project it, and then that's all they know. That's what they become.
Yeah, but we were all taught the same things. I mean, they called Bush a Nazi. You know?
Yeah.
They called Bush a Nazi. They've called everybody in the dog a Nazi. And when I was a kid, that people didn't accept it to that degree. They didn't accept it to the degree that this particular group that went after Charlie accepted it. Like, it wasn't the same. Now, again, I don't think it was quite as intense. Maybe that's what it was. You know, just the degree of the intensity of the propaganda was more, perhaps. But it just seemed like in 2016, you know, we call it Trump derangement syndrome, but whatever it was, it just seemed like it turned it into like a violent kind of hatred.
But my personal opinion, it was a lot more spiritual than political.
You think so?
But that's just me.
Well, what would open that door? Sure. If it was spiritual, what would open that door? What would bring that stuff in?
Charlie had no qualms with telling people about Jesus Christ. Right there on campuses, he would just preach it out. And he had no problems with that. Which, anybody, Jesus said it, it'll paint a target on your back.
But what made them, I'm wondering, like, embrace Trump derangement syndrome to the degree that they have?
Oh, I don't know.
That's kind of my question. I'm just like, because they tried that. They vilified Bush like crazy. They just did. And, you know, there was he wasn't the greatest president in the world, but the way they treated him was just over the top. And people didn't accept it back then. You know, I mean, even liberals, they didn't hate the guy like they hate Trump. I think what happened.
Trump's not a politician.
Mm-hmm.
He's the first
in their
businessman. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's running the country more like a business than a country. And they don't like that.
Yeah. Well, I think this is just my opinion and I'm speculating, but I kind of think they must have. I kind of think they had a plan. I kind of think that there was something in the Obama administration, because we joked about it. We talked when we were younger, when Obama was in office, and I was still down there with you guys. My fun time, Jess says, social media wasn't as big during the Bush administration either. That's true. But I kind of feel like they've been doing a lot of complaining about social media. They've been acting like social media is antagonizing everything. I don't know if I buy that. Yeah, like Twitter, TikTok, the ability to create echo chambers. Like, yeah, Jess just said the echo chambers weren't as prevalent. That's kind of a major line people have been having about echo chambers. I'm not sure that's really what it is. Because, dude, to get a countervailing point of view when I was a kid was a big deal. It involved standing on a farm truck, or like sitting in a farm truck on top of a hill, finding different places on in the field to try to get like the wisps of an AM radio signal, so you could listen to Rush Limbaugh. You know,
I remember that.
Yeah, like
you got to drive 20 minutes just to find a good spot.
Mm-hmm. Right. You literally had to drive up and down the road just to find a spot where the signal was clear enough to hear him.
And what was weird, it was never in the same spot.
Yeah, it was always moving around. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one who went through that. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you wanted to be different and get a different point of view, you had to do that. You had to drive up and down the road and find those spots where the AM signal worked, and you had to get on pull up in a field and try to drive around till you could get that static to die down.
Bring a picnic basket with you with snacks and stuff.
I mean, I was working, but yes, yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. Yeah. So, they had such a monopoly back when you and I were kids. They had such a monopoly. And so I don't feel like...
Monopoly on what?
The message. What was right, what was wrong, what was true, what was false. And I feel like social media provided for the first time like actual opposing points of view. Like you actually
don't know how to handle it.
Well, yeah, that, but people, I guess what I'm saying is I feel like social media has been a mitigating factor to this. I'm not convinced it's made it worse. Maybe it has. Maybe everybody's right and I'm wrong. It's fine. But I just have a hard time imagining that, because it's like I look at social media and I'm like, man, when I was a kid, I'd have killed to have this.
Right.
I'd have killed to not have to drive up and down the road looking for an AM signal. I'd have killed to actually get opposing points of view, to have such easy access to opposing points of view, because NBC was gospel truth when I was growing up. Like they were the Bible for like the majority of the country, and they got away with some evil crap. I mean, Waco, Ruby Ridge, they got away with some evil crap, and they were able to get away with some evil crap because there was no internet to challenge them. They literally, that Waco thing, and I can't say this enough, that was one of the most evil things I ever saw. They literally got away with burning women and children alive and then turning around and throwing the cultists in jail, who they just tried to burn alive. I mean, that's how powerful the narrative was. The ATF and FBI could kill women and children on live television, and then people would call for the heads of the cultists. That's how messed up it was back in the 90s. Like, they had the power, and they used it. And they used it against the American people, and the American people let them. And they bought the crap. They bought the crap hook, line, and sinker. I'll never forget that. I mean, I remember... It was horrifying because it was the first news story I remember. I was 5, I think. Happened in 93. So, yeah, I think I was 4 or 5. Yeah. I was young. But it's the first news story I remember, and I remember as a kid being just horrified because even at that age, I understood, probably because of something an anchor had said, that people just like me, kids my age, were dying. And I was very, very upset. And I don't remember who I was yelling at and venting my anger to at that age, but whoever it was I was talking to, they looked at me, and it was something to the effect of, yeah, but David Koresh was crazy. That was the response. Like, they appealed to the insanity of David Koresh. And nothing else mattered. You know what I mean? Nothing, like, it didn't matter that those women and children were burned alive. It didn't matter that the FBI did it. They denied it, but of course they would. Maybe it was an accident. The only question is whether or not it was an accident. But accident or not, they did it. They killed them. And rather than going, there has to be consequences, because it was either negligence to the degree that they may as well go to jail, because anybody that dumb doesn't deserve to be out on the streets anyway, because they were spraying some kind of gas into the complex, and then they were shooting into the building while this gas was in the air. I mean, obviously something was going to spark, and then the building was going to blow up because the gas was going to ignite. It didn't take an idiot to figure out what was going to happen, and they were told not to shoot, but I think satellite footage, you got barrel, like, rifle blasts on the infrared from a satellite of the complex. You got several rifle flashes from different people.
Been scary from a 3-year-old or 4-year-old perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's horrifying. It's the first news story I remember. And everybody sided with the FBI and the ATF instead of the cultists. Didn't matter. Everybody wanted their heads. Everybody wanted the cultists in jail, not the FBI and the ATF, who were stupid enough to shoot into a building full of women and children while there's a bunch of gas being pumped into the tank. Or pumped into the building. You know, like they had a tank, and they had, like, this tank was filled with knockout gas, and they'd driven the tank into the building, which, you know, of course that's going to put the women and kids in danger, but they had driven that tank into the building. And if that wasn't bad enough, they were shooting around the tank. But these were like, the shooting had stopped from the cultist perspective like weeks ago. So they weren't even being shot at. They were just firing into the building. And the brutal truth is they were doing it on purpose. They wanted to burn those women and kids alive, and they wanted to make it look like an accident. That's what they were doing. That was the intention.
The real target was.
Well, it was a photo op gone wrong. They had damaged the FBI, damaged their reputation because the Ruby Ridge thing had blown up. And so they wanted a good photo op. And so they harassed this cult, which David Koresh was a cultist. He wasn't a good guy. He wasn't a noble creature by any stretch of the imagination. He was your typical cult guy. In fact, that Basham Hill bunch that we talked about a couple weeks ago, they're part of that same kind of cult and ideology that Koresh was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's the same crowd. So he wasn't a saint. But, you know, it wasn't like Jeffrey Jones, Jerry Jones, I can't remember. The guy that had everybody drink the Kool-Aid. He wasn't that type. You know, he wasn't that type. He was just a run-of-the-mill cultist, you know. And you know, they needed a photo op. So they found a cult, they targeted the cult, they harassed the cult. But the cult did have weapons. And so when they basically made this fake claim about kids being abused. And they went in there with the ATF and the FBI, and they drummed up some gun charges as well that weren't legitimate. And so they drove up on the compound, and they were going to arrest everybody, and they were going to get their photo op. But the cultists had guns, and the cultists didn't know anything about what was happening. Cultists shot back, you know, because they thought they were under attack, and they thought it was the end of the world, you know, because they're a cult that was apocalyptic. It was like based in the apocalypse, you know. And so you see this army of people, because they brought everybody, you know, they brought, you know, a bunch of people with guns and vehicles and everything else. And they were doing it for the photo op, right? But the cultist, I think Trevor is out. How long did it take me to catch that? Anyway. Well, I don't know if he's going to come back or not. Let me see if I can... Yeah, fix it. Hang on a minute here. Let's see if I can actually get the right window. Gotta love that. I'll just do the same window share screen for now. See if I can get that to work. Nope, that ain't right either. Hang on here, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Here we go. We want to do properties. We're going to need to change our zoom window. Hang on. There we go. All right. Apologies, guys. Anyway, so the moral of the story was it was a photo op gone wrong. The cultists actually killed a few of the FBI agents during the firefight, but it was a whole unnecessary escalation to begin with. And then the FBI wanted to get even. And so because they were mad, they set up this whole thing. In my opinion, they set up the whole thing deliberately to make it look like an accident. But even so, even if that wasn't the case, it was the biggest example of incompetence that had been seen. And yet, they were able to convince people at the time that it was the cultist's fault, which is insane. So, my point is, I'm not entirely convinced that social media is the main culprit, because for a long time they could set whatever narrative they want and they had complete control. And so I feel like it would have been much more pernicious back in the day. I think something else happened, and maybe I'm wrong, because everybody is pretty well uniform in their opinion that social media is the big problem, that everybody's in an echo chamber, and you've kind of got these feedback loops, and everybody's super upset. And yeah. So yeah, I've got Trevor just said the power's out, so he just confirmed that. And then Cody said massive storm in Trevor and I's neck of the woods. So yeah, they're not able to. Hopefully they'll be back in a little bit, but it's inclement weather. So yeah, I'm looking at the weather here. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I got one a little north of us as well, actually. So I don't know how long we're actually going to be able to stay on. So let me try to wrap this up here a little bit, and we'll just call it a night, because we're at the 30-minute mark anyway, and that's about as long as we'd planned to stay on. I don't know what's happening. I was very saddened by people's reactions, but not surprised, because, I mean, we saw what they did with Trump. I mean, when they shot at Trump, everybody cheered. So it's like, I mean, I kind of figured it was this way, but a lot of people didn't. And, you know, it was interesting to watch it dawn on people, because people got really upset. And one gal I watched kind of had tears in her eyes, got choked up, because she realized for the first time that, like, these people really hated her. And that had never occurred to her. It's like, yeah, okay, things are bad, but we're all kind of on the same team. Fundamentally, there are things that unite us. That's kind of been the sentiment of everybody. And I think people learned that we're in a different ball game this last week. I wish I knew why. I was kind of hoping the other guys would be able to stay on tonight, because I kind of wanted to brainstorm and try to discuss the nature of evil, and try to, ask the question, maybe y'all could do this for yourself, kind of ask the question, why? Like, how did we get here? Like, how did they become that way? I don't think it's enough to blame social media. Whatever happened, whatever drove people to this point, I got to be honest, and I could be completely wrong, because it's just pure intuition. I don't have a specific reason to think this. But I kind of think blaming social media is a cop-out. I don't know what caused it. I have no counter theory, but I just don't think that's enough. I think it's propaganda. I think it's something a little more directed and intentional. But people still have to choose to adopt those narratives. And so what did it and why? And maybe we'll talk about it next week when the weather isn't so bad. But I want to discuss that, and I want to think on that. It's like, what? 50,000 people is not a minority. That was the last number I heard, as far as like people saying, yeah, glad he's dead, kill other people. That was the last number I heard, was 50,000. Now, that's more than just a couple bad actors. That's, how do you get 50,000 people to that point when you grow up in a culture that's saying debate is good, freedom is, and emphasizes freedom of speech, and that movement emphasized freedom of speech. That's what's really confusing. That movement claimed to be for freedom of speech for so long, and now here we are, and they don't believe in it anymore. Now, how did that happen? Because, everybody has what they say they believe, and they kind of have their pretense, and then they kind of have the real motives. But, usually the way you challenge those kinds of people is you break apart the pretense. Well, their pretense of being the party of free speech, the party of expression, is shot. It's gone now. And yet they don't care. They're doubling down, and that's 50,000 people. How do you convince that many people to just ignore their pretense and then do a 180 on what they said they believed, 2-3 years ago? Well, not even 2-3 years ago. Let's take it back. Oh gosh, like before Trump, I guess. And maybe that's the thing. It's something about Trump derangement syndrome that caused all this. But what and why? Like, I have my opinions as to why the politicians and the media acted that way. But why did the people accept that narrative so readily? Was it the professors? Was it the high school education? Was the propaganda really that effective? Was there something else going on in the culture? I don't know. I just wanted to get people's opinions on it because it's just, it's bothering me. I don't know what it is. I will say this, though. I'm not sad that people are getting fired for this. And the reason is when you're talking about freedom of speech, it's not, the criterion is not how offensive something is or how repulsive, whatever somebody says, like how repulsed you are by their words, let's say. It's not really the issue. The issue is like a threat. Does somebody mean harm? And these people that are sitting there saying Charlie Kirk deserves what he got or whatever. Charlie Kirk had pretty standard conservative opinions. And this is what was hitting home for that girl I was watching earlier in the week. I think Shion Head's her name. A lot of people were Charlie Kirk. Like, I would be considered more extreme than Charlie Kirk. A lot of people were Charlie Kirk. He's pretty standard as far as like people's sentiments are concerned. And if they were happy he was dead, they're probably going to be happy that somebody else was killed. And yeah, they'd be happy you were dead if you had Charlie Kirk's opinions. And that was really hitting people hard for the first time. So I think those people have basically made it known that they are taking a wartime posture with you, if you will. They want you dead. They mean you dead. That's what they mean whenever they say they're happy Charlie Kirk is dead. They think a good chunk of the country ought to be dead. That's not good. So I'm not sad that these people are being fired because I think they've made it abundantly clear that they consider you somebody. Basically, if you gave them a gun and an opportunity, they'd shoot half the population. That's communicating a threat. As for Jimmy Kimmel, which was something we were going to talk about briefly as well this week, I'm not sad that he got fired. From what I understand, it was really about low ratings anyway. Like, he destroyed that show. And they wanted to get rid of him anyhow. But, I mean, honestly, he lied. By the time his show came out, by the time he made that speech, it was evident the guy was a liberal and all the rest of it. And he knew that, but he just wanted to have his narrative. And he wanted to tell his people. Yeah, he wanted to tell his people the problem. Or he wanted to spin his own narrative, regardless of the truth of the matter. Cody Bocephus says, emailed you a meme on the topic. Let's see what the meme is. Give me just a minute here. I am slightly curious. So if y'all will indulge me for a second. All right, let's see if I can download this. I'll try to share it. Hold on, everybody. There we go. Sorry, guys. I can go up to the share screen here. So anyway, that's kind of the situation. Here we go. Well, that took long enough. All right, let me adjust the window. There we are. So, people should get shot for their opinions. I shouldn't get fired for my opinions. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's exactly right. So, I wish I could explain how we got here. I do stand by my categorization thing that I brought up last week. That there are people who are manipulated, there are people who are mercenaries, and there are people who are malevolent. I think even now, despite how psychotic these people have gotten, I do think fundamentally they're manipulated. I don't think that there's something inherently like malevolent or demonic like what I described last week for the majority of people. I think some people are mercenaries. They do what they do because they get paid. And I think some people even scream hateful stuff because they've been convinced of a party line. And I think those people have been manipulated. I don't think there's anything exceptionally malevolent about them. I think the people that are malevolent are the people at the top who have set the narratives and have manipulated the 50,000 on Twitter or wherever it was. I wish I could understand why those people accept those lies and what it is about those lies that make it compelling for those people. But I still think, despite the fact that they become so Machiavellian, I still think fundamentally they are manipulated and they are driven. Like that, the kind of mental illness that they're going through is something they're driven to. It's not something that just happens, like in nature, as it were. So I stand by that. I just wish I could understand why they find the propaganda so captivating. So I think I have ridden the clock long enough here on this subject. I do apologize for the shorter stream this week. We will have a better prepared show next week, but it looks like it's for the best that we don't have a very prepared show because I'm starting to get the same thunder that they're getting, and if they've lost power, I'm probably in for a long night. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this stream off before the storms hit, and yeah, we're going to call it a night and all that good stuff. We'll be back next week, and it'll be a more regular show. I've got some announcements I want to make next week regarding some stuff I've been working on, and I think we've got one more NDE video to do, and then we're done with NDEs. And then we're going to start talking about some of the pastors that people in the comments have been recommending. And we're going to do kind of a, well, who is, we did a who is Kenneth Copeland, who is Oral Roberts. We did stuff like that. We're going to get back into that. Cody Bosifa says, cheers, Primo. Cheers, sir. Cheers, indubitably. So, yeah, we got the who is thing, and then we've got, yeah, that's the big one. We're going to do a series on that for a while. I'm going to start doing a series on my reviews that I've did for Mind Matters, and kind of in preparation for some stuff I'm working on that I'll bring up next week. And we are going to do a little more on Jesse Lee Peterson. Now, I happen to irritate a lot of people because I disagreed with Jesse Lee Peterson a few weeks ago. They wanted him on the show. We'll discuss him further. If we were able to get him on the show, we've looked into it. It would take like 7 to 8 months if he was to answer it all. And I don't know if the channel's big enough for him to decide it's worth his attention or not. But even if it were, it would be 6 to 7 months before we could even get an interview with him. Trevor's working on getting other interviews as well, so we're going to start trying to do more interviews for y'all. That seems to be going over well. And I also want to thank everybody who followed Mr. Buzz and subscribed to us. I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank Mr. Buzz for coming on the show. It was very good of him. and I hope he enjoys his. I'm glad to hear that his channel is blowing up. I'm happy to see that. And we would like to have him back on at some point to talk about the musical frequency stuff, because that's how we came across him. So we'll re-explore that at some point. So, all right. Well, I hear the rain. Now, that's all the announcements I have. So we're pretty well done. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.